Today we're going to talk about gases. It may seem like a simple topic, but as you'll find, this incorporates the relationship between all living things. It's how everything that's alive is connected. And it also gives us insight into systems biology, our own internal ecology, and how we fit into the world around us. At one point in Earth's history, nothing could breathe oxygen and live. Cyanobacteria began to proliferate, and just one day, there was a tipping point with those gases, and there was a mass extinction event. After that, most life was completely wiped out, but it set the stage for new life forms to begin. Within our bodies, there are also interplays of gases. There are various ratios of gases that will harbor different forms of microbiota. These microbiota have been found to influence our intelligence, levels of obesity, and our immune systems. There are different microbial profiles for people who are autistic, or people who are cat people or dog people, whether or not you like extreme sports. This interplay between gases, gut microbiota, and our brain function is so interconnected, it's being called the gut-brain axis. To really understand ourselves and where we fit into the big picture of life, it's important to take a systems approach to biology, to look at ecosystems and really view ourselves as part of the ecology within our environment, and learn from the environment to find out how to bio-optimize ourselves. Everything respirating, from bacteria to lions, will have a relationship with the air that surrounds it. There's a relationship between the ions surrounding plants, the electrical potential within the air, and the gases themselves. And we've all felt this. Right before a lightning storm, the hair on the back of your neck kind of stands up. You can feel the electricity in the air before you start seeing it in the sky. On our own Earth, we can find areas where there are particular mixtures of gases, and in those regions, there's increased electrical activity. In Venezuela, over the mouth of the Catatumbo River, there's what's called Catatumbo Lightning. It's a mass of storm clouds that causes constant lightning, 260 nights a year, 10 hours per day, and up to 280 times per hour. As winds blow across Maracaibo Lake and the swampy plains that surround it, the air masses meet the high mountain ridges of the Andes. These mountains enclose the plains from three sides. The heat and moisture collects across the plains and creates electrical charges. As these air masses are destabilized, it causes continuous lightning in a large vertical development of clouds. This results in incredible electrical activity that in turn creates an enormous output of ozone. There's an interplay between these gases, electricity, and life. In fact, it's been said that a mixture of hydrogen sulfide and hydrogen cyanide combined with electricity from lightning was potentially the cause of life on this planet. Scientists have been able to take hydrogen sulfide and hydrogen cyanide and make some of the building blocks that later form amino acids. So it's not a complete amino acid, but it's one of the building blocks that later forms into a DNA strand. Interestingly, in the deepest aspects of the Earth, we find that there are gases. And within the atmosphere, within the upper reaches of the atmosphere, you go up to the stratosphere and you can find certain types of bacteria that are up even in these high locations. There's an absolute interplay between heaven and earth. And in between this, we find bacteria, gases, electricity, everything that we can think of corresponding to life and what makes life and what signals life. Lightning in the sky. We see a flash, we hear a sound, and nitrogen is being released. It sinks down to the Earth's surface, where it's fixed into bacteria, and that later forms part of the nitrogen cycle. We see cycles wherever there are gases, and wherever these cycles, whether they're water cycles or carbon cycles or nitrogen cycles, we see that they're facilitating life. To understand life within your own body, at a high level, it is essential to understand that these interplays of gases are happening within you with every breath you take, with every thought you have, with every firing of a neuron. There's gas exchange between the electricity and bacteria. Just as lightning releases in the sky with light and sound and nitrogen, the same thing is happening in your fingertips right now. And that same nitrogen can feed bacteria that's floating about in your body as we speak, just as it is nurturing bacteria in the soil within the outer environment. Within your body is an internal heaven and earth, and it follows many of the same principles as the outer environment. We can look at the parts of the body as an individual clover, or we can see that clover as just a small piece in cycles of water vapor and nitrogen and carbon. We can look at a rock as something very static, or we can look closer and see that even that seemingly solid rock is in a state of evaporation, not much different from ice cubes in your freezer. After a few months, you pull them out and find that the levels of the ice cubes have dropped. This is because even though they're solid, they're transferring directly into a gaseous state. There's something that I find almost spiritual about the way that gases and solids interchange. And oftentimes when we look at history, when we look at folklore, we find that what we once considered to be something related to the gods, we can find in a modern context is often related to gases.
There is a cave in Sichuan that for 1,000 years, people are told not to go into that cave because there was a dragon. Years later, there was an army that decided to go to that cave because they want to let local people know it was just a superstition. The army went into the cave and never came out. So the local people sealed the cave with concrete. Years later, they found poisonous gases around that area. So now we know that there is no dragon, but we should have respected the tradition.
What many ancient people considered to be magic, we now find in association with gases. Spiritual lights, will-o'-the-wisp, have now been found to be swamp gases. The oracle at Delphi was a young woman who would sit in a very particular space. She would begin to trip out, get a little bit high, and start to tell people their future. Years later, upon further investigation, it's found that there was a gas leak at this point. The gases were poisoning this poor young woman's brain. In Europe, in China, and India, there are stories of people going into these deep, dark woods and starting to see mythical beasts or monsters. We can chalk this up to mythology, but we know that fungi are in every breath that we take, and we also know that certain types of fungi are hallucinogenic. I believe that many of the phenomena that have been attributed to spirits and ghosts have a lot to do with the gases that we're breathing and what lives on those gases that we take in with every breath. There are gases like oxygen that we very directly and obviously use for ourselves. There are also additional aspects of ourselves that aren't really human in terms of the DNA makeup. Our microbial profile includes trillions of bacteria, fungi, and viruses who also use different mixtures of these gases for their own purposes. Ideally, these purposes are united with kind of the overall colony that is your human body. The gases in our environment are completely inseparable from the gases which enter our bloodstream. What we're breathing has an intimate effect on our gut bacteria and our neurological signaling. There are also gases which serve as signaling molecules. So these can kind of act as catalysts to help facilitate some of the actions within our body. However, there's a special class of signaling gaseous molecules called gasotransmitters. These are absolutely fascinating because they're gases that serve as neurotransmitters. They can cross membranes and carry information from one place to the next. They're also pivotal in maintaining your body's checks and balances or homeostasis. When these gases are off, your body stops being able to communicate at an intracellular level, and the communication systems in your body begin to break down. In fact, the distribution of these gases can be responsible for a very optimized state of health, or it can be associated with most chronic diseases. Levels of gasotransmitters can either be too high, too low, or there can be problems with the cellular distribution. If any of these three happen, it can throw all of the systems in your body off kilter. People with asthma either have elevated or depressed levels of these gasotransmitters. Too much of a gasotransmitter called hydrogen sulfide can be associated with bronchospasms. Too little is also associated with bronchospasm. In New Zealand, there was an increase in asthma in a small mining town. It was later discovered that levels of hydrogen sulfide had spiked, causing people to have increased incidence of asthma. Asthma can also be detected by measuring exhaled nitric oxide levels. With severe asthma, the inflammatory nitric oxide seems to be elevated. Diseases involving chronic pain, such as fibromyalgia, have been associated with poor distribution of nitric oxide, which means it doesn't matter as much if it's too high or too low. It's just that its ability to get to each individual cell is diminished, so we get this kind of traffic jam effect, where it's too bunched up in one area and too little in another. Where there's too little nitric oxide, the mitochondria aren't going to be producing energy. The ATP production is going to be way down. In areas where it's too high, we get inflammation that is causing an oxidative reaction to damage the nerves, literally causing the nerves to rust and short out. You can see how this causes a problem. We want our energy centers to be rich, supplying ATP in a very even manner, just like an even flow of traffic on the highway. If, on the other hand, we get these kind of traffic jams, we get this stop and start traffic. So even if our body has ample cells that are ready to make ATP, the mitochondria is just fine. If we can't get the right distribution of these signaling gases, it doesn't matter. Nerves are going to disintegrate on one hand, and on the other hand, our body won't be able to produce energy. This is why gasotransmitters are at the center of most chronic diseases. Gasotransmitters have regulatory effects on the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Essentially, your entire endocrine system is facilitated by the balance of gases in your body. With the right levels of nitric oxide, your body will start converting fat into heat. People with obesity have increased methane on the breath. This methane will also carry fecal bacteria with it. So if you're tremendously overweight, brushing your teeth may not be enough. It will ultimately take a change in gut bacteria and altering those gases to really allow you to transform that fat into heat energy. This is why many meditation traditions have been shown to increase or decrease body temperature. If we look at Wim Hof, the Iceman, who can sit on ice and meditate, his core body temperature isn't dropping. 20 years ago, this was said to baffle scientists, but now the mystery isn't so complex. We know now that using breathing exercises and meditation techniques can regulate the flow of these gasotransmitters within the human body. We also know that when they're at their peak ratios, they can help to convert brown fat and white fat into heat. The key to controlling our body and minds has to do with regulating these gasotransmitters. And we know for certain that techniques like meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga are ways that can help regulate these gases within the human body. Diabetes, anhidrosis, lack of sweating, many of the really obscure diseases that we see are associated with elevated levels of nitric oxide or depressed levels. and deregulation of hydrogen sulfide as well. Hydrogen sulfide dips sharply right before people have a stroke. And other people with chronic heart disease have decreased levels of nitric oxide. Your ability to survive a stroke or heart attack also has to do with the stores of these gases within your body. Hydrogen sulfide is even associated with gene expression of the Klotho gene, which is associated with longevity. Scientists took a group of mice and they blocked the gene expression of Klotho. The mice who had this gene blocked lived 30% less than the other mice. This gene is signaled by hydrogen sulfide. Our life expectancy, where we're carrying fat on our bodies, how cold or warm we are, our relative levels of temperature and moisture, our gut microbiota, how susceptible we are to chronic pain and chronic diseases like asthma, diabetes, drug addiction. These are all associated with deregulation of nitric oxide. Major depression is associated with chronically elevated nitric oxide. Understanding these gases is of the utmost importance for understanding the future of medicine. The future of medicine is understanding ourselves as ecological systems. We're not robots. We're an entire ecosystem inside of a larger ecosystem within the context of our environment. We will never conquer chronic diseases until we begin to view ourselves from the standpoint of the gases that permeate our bodies, the deepest levels of the earth, and the upper reaches of the stratosphere. There are many diseases that traditional medical systems can fix incredibly easily, that modern medicine has no idea how to treat. All of these diseases that Chinese medicine just knocks out of the park have one thing in common. They are all associated with the imbalance of these gases, and there's a very good reason why. For the past couple thousand years, Chinese medicine has taken a gas-centered approach to human physiology. The knowledge of anatomy wasn't always correct. In fact, sometimes it's downright wacky. But the understanding of how these gases influence our body has been uncannily accurate and has put them in a forefront of medicine when it comes to chronic diseases. We live in a very exciting time. Thanks to modern pharmacology, particularly the pharmacology of Chinese herbs, we have a bridge to completely unite this superpower of Chinese medicine with the future of biomedicine. Chinese medicine is centered on an idea called qi. Qi is translated as energy in the West, but its understanding is a little more nuanced. Qi literally means gas or vapor. It does have implications with energy, just like gases do in our environment. The right mixture of gases can cause electrical storms. It can cause lightning to strike. It can cause fire. Chinese researchers got curious and began to think, hey, I wonder if actual gases are leaving these points or if it's something more metaphorical. They measured for electrical conductivity to find the acupuncture points. When they found the area of highest electrical conductivity, they measured those points on the skin for nitric oxide. What they found is that the acupuncture points had 3 times the levels of nitric oxide. Chinese herbs and herbal formulas are also categorized according to what their effects are on qi. There are herbs like ginseng that's said to boost up qi. There are herbs that are said to clear it away or to improve its overall distribution. This is fascinating because it seems to overlap so closely with modern ideas of gasotransmitters either being too high, too low, or having problems with distribution. Lan, these herbs that are said to boost qi, do they have influences on gases like hydrogen sulfide or nitric oxide?
Actually, yes. When you look at the herbs boosting up qi, if you look at the pharmacology, you will find the trend that they will increase the gasotransmitters such as nitric oxide.
What about formulas that are said to move qi or improve the overall distribution of these gases?
formulas like that, you will see a trend that they drop the nitric oxides in certain area.
So they're dropping the nitric oxide in certain areas, but may also improve its cellular distribution.
That's right.
That's fascinating. Acupuncture, like the herbs, has been found to have biphasic effects on these gasotransmitters. Acupuncture can increase gases like hydrogen sulfide or nitric oxide, or decrease them. So anytime you're getting surgery or a needle is puncturing skin, you're also influencing these gasotransmitters. These gasotransmitters, in turn, are affecting every aspect of our physiology. Immediately, this made me think of bloodletting, which gets such a bad rap now. But I'm wondering, what if in releasing the blood, they were actually releasing more of the gases within that blood? That would definitely have an effect on regulating inflammation within the body. Within Qigong, there are 3 types. There's boosting, or compressing gases into the tissue. There's releasing, which is sending it out. And then there's regulating, which is improving its overall distribution. Once again, I find this beautiful parallel between gasotransmitters and traditional ideas of qi, which, coincidentally, they use the exact word for gas. So I'm thinking they might have had a little more figured out than we give them credit for. In any case, the understanding that I have about qi is not that it's something in your imagination, it's not something about fairy tales. It has to do with making yourself hold your breath longer, being able to run further distances, and recover faster from illness. It's being able to do acupuncture so you get more of an electric sensation going down the channels and affecting fascia. When you get the right distribution of nitric oxide, it causes fascia to loosen up, which fascinates me because Chinese methods for stretching and Indian methods for stretching, like yoga, use breath work and meditation first before they begin stretching the body. As I look deeper into the effect of nitric oxide on fascia, this makes perfect sense. It's a much more efficient way to go about the same thing. It's so simple, but at the same time, it opens up so many doors for further understanding our minds and consciousness. Gasotransmitters like hydrogen sulfide improve the neuronal connections within our brains. It's associated with memory and memory loss. If you get the wrong distribution of hydrogen sulfide, it's associated with Alzheimer's disease. This would mean that Chinese medicine would hold the strategies, if not even the tools, that could pave the way for the future of medicine. Chinese medicine is based on understanding how to regulate these gases within the human body. To me, this is so exciting and fascinating because people who are Qigong masters can recover so quickly from injuries. I envision a future where people are wearing masks with just the right mixture of oxygen and hydrogen sulfide and nitric oxide to give them the same attributes that allow for Kung Fu masters to heal quickly. I picture people withstanding cold using breathing techniques that have been popularized by Wim Hof that have been used for thousands of years in Tibet. I see this unlocking tremendous human potential in all of us. Next week, we're going to cover the strategies of how to regulate these gasotransmitters. If you would like more information, references, or resources, please check us out at botanicalbiohacking.com. If you found this information valuable, please share it with your friends and family.